7:04, we're on the way here. Welcome, Village of Winnetka, regular meeting, Village Council meeting, January 6th. And we'll call this meeting to order, and if we could have everyone mute their cell phones or other electronic devices so that we don't interrupt the proceedings. Obviously, Happy New Year to everybody up here. Hope you had a great holiday. It's good to be back and ready to go, 2026. We'll start with Manager Kazinas doing a roll call for attendance.
Trustee Myers.
Here.
Trustee Apatoff.
Here.
We'll bring you into the meeting momentarily, Trustee Apatoff.
I figured that, okay.
Trustee Dahlman. Here. Trustee Orsic.
Here.
Trustee Albinson.
Here.
Trustee Handler.
Here.
President Dearborn.
Here. Okay, Trustee Apatoff has provided the required notice that he is unable to attend tonight's meeting due to a family or other emergency. Our rules provide that Trustee Apatoff may participate remotely unless 2/3 of the board objects. Is there any objection? Hearing none, Trustee Apatoff may now participate remotely fully in this meeting, and the minutes should so reflect.
Now, Trustee Apatoff.
Here.
Okay, good, good. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance here, and I'll lead it. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Manager Kazinas, can we do a quorum check for the next several meetings?
So our next meeting in January is January 20th. Everyone expects to attend. And then 3 meetings in February, the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th.
I should be gone on the 10th.
I will be gone the 10th
Yeah.
as well for my corporate.
I mean, unless
retreat.
the airs are shut down. Okay.
So I get my schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to item 4, public comments. And I'll ask if anyone in the audience would like to speak about an item not on tonight's agenda. Please remember to keep your public comments to a maximum of 3 minutes so that everyone has an opportunity to speak, and direct your comments to the council. I have a list here. We have 3 people. We'll start with Linda Welsh.
Good evening. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. I'd like to talk briefly about my belief that Winnetka really needs a dog beach, or what I like to say is a people beach that allows dogs. I believe a dog beach offers a great way for the community to connect. I think it's really important. It's a stress reliever for dogs and people, and it's a legal place for dogs to be off leash, which I think is important. It reduces conflict. And also, it's important to remember that the dog beach is the only lakefront property that is really utilized year-round. It also doesn't rely on any paid staff because it has a key fob that we get into. I would like to say, in summary, that the controversy that exists, I don't think is really about dogs running on the sand, but how we manage this space legally and fairly. I believe we should leave Centennial Dog Beach as it is and only spend our tax dollars on upgrading Elder, which is not broke, should probably not be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the itinerary for public comment is Kim Marsh.
Kim Marsh, lifelong resident of Winnetka and daily user of the dog beach. I'm opposed to the construction of fencing at Centennial Dog Beach. It's overdone, unnecessary, and improper under the public trust doctrine. I realize this isn't on the agenda tonight, but I want to get ahead of this issue because I've been seeing a lot of back and forth about the fencing that's been proposed. I speak only for myself, but I do know people who agree with me. And I would like to make a suggestion, which is please consider or explore alternative locations for a dog beach. I personally don't care where it is, I just want one. It does not need to be at Centennial, and there is currently a proposal of a huge fence to run into the water, and it's a total violation of the public trust doctrine. It's not appropriate. The Park District has been pushing it for years, and it's a terrible idea. And it's kowtowing to a particular resident who lives adjacent to the Centennial. I think there are many more suitable locations that we should explore, and they would require less infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Ted Winnichenko.
Hello. So this is sort of like an episode of Seinfeld for the village. It's a show about nothing for you guys. I'm addressing the Attorney General's Public Access Counselor. So I have twice been silenced during public comments based on the content of my speech. The Public Access Counselor published non-binding opinions, which are completely unlawful. You know, I recently finished reading, I feel Trumpish here by going on all these segues. I recently finished reading Goliath's Curse by Dr. Kemp. And I have to say that watching the unitary executive and then state and local governments become more and more authoritarian, I have to believe that we are heading for a civil collapse. But regardless. So when I spoke last time, I was cut off, and then the Public Access Counselor published this opinion citing case law Steinberg v. Chesterfield County Planning Commission, somehow suggesting that that related to what happened here. It does not. When it comes to public forums, there are three types of public forums generally. There are traditional open public forums, there are designated public forums, then there are limited public forums, and of course non-public forums. This comment period right now is a designated public forum, general. I can speak about anything here. This is as close as it gets to a traditional public forum, like me talking on the street. So when we start talking about limits on what I can say, we are clearly talking about First Amendment rights. The Public Access Counselor came up with this convoluted idea that somehow what I was saying was akin to a limited public forum, which was a hearing based to discuss a specific topic, and speakers were talking outside of that topic, and they were yelling and arguing with the board and other members and all that stuff. It has no bearing on what happened at the last two meetings or what will happen the next time I come up to speak at this general open part of the meeting, where it is a general public forum, and I will abide by the rules that you set. So I'm not going to make any threats against anyone, but I am going to read the letter that you sent me in its entirety. That's all I'm going to do. So you'll have a choice. You'll cut me off when I get to the part that you say is disruptive, or you won't. If you don't cut me off, of course, that calls into question why you cut me off the times before. If you do cut me off, then I'm going to point the Public Access Counselor. Well, actually, I'm going to go beyond the normal public. I'll go to Coamiro and other people. But I'm going to point out that I am here exercising my First Amendment right. I am not doing anything that's unlawful, and we'll see where it goes. So that's my comments today. It's really just to have a recording so that when I come by next week or whenever, I can point to this. General public comments, traditional public forum, as open as it can be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to make public comment tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, move on to item 5, which is reports. We'll start with reports from trustees. Start at this end, trustee Handler.
No report.
Trustee Alvinson.
No report.
Trustee Orsick.
Brief report, just for us to have our ears open in the future. We had 2 plan commissions in a row that dealt with lot consolidations, and the first one about a month and a half ago was the first R5 under the lot consolidation ordinance we passed 3 years ago, and that was unanimously denied because it met the exact letter of our ordinance. The most recent one was on Foxdale, and it was just under, like a sliver under the standards of the ordinance. And there was a lot of discussion, the board was split, and then one person changed their vote because it did not meet the goals of the comprehensive plan, which we were supposed to provide different levels of affordable housing and things like that. And the fear that they have, that they wanted me to make clear here, is they would like more guidance because some things they think people are going to figure out how to start packaging lots together so that they can fall just under the ordinance, and that if you allow consolidations because there are already others, pretty soon a neighborhood can go from 18 houses to 12 to 6. So they said, you know, the houses on Foxdale were designed the way they were for a reason. We're state mandated to have more affordable housing, and they would like more discussion on this topic and more guidance. So that's not for today, but we may see one or both of those. And in any event, they all unanimously have a concern that we address this. So.
Okay. Is that something that community development can take under advisement?
Yes, we'll get staff feedback on that and
Okay.
connect with the Plan Commission.
Thank you for that, Bridget. Trustee Dahlman?
No report.
Trustee Myers?
No report.
Trustee Apatoff?
No report tonight.
Okay. Village Attorney?
No report.
Village Manager?
No report.
And no report from me tonight. So we'll move on to item 6, establishment of the consent agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove any item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Move on to the approval of the consent agenda, and we'll have our village manager read the items on the consent agenda.
Approval of the Village Council minutes from the December 2nd, 2025 regular meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated December 12th, 25 through December 31, 2025 in the amount of $1,870,853.73. Resolution number R5, 2026, approving the disposal of an existing Public Works tractor and purchase of a new Public Works tractor and equipment from Brown Equipment Company for adoption. Resolution number R06, 2026, certificate of appropriateness for front building elevation alterations at 24 Green Bay Road for adoption.
Okay, thank you for that. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
And that's a roll call vote.
Trustee Albenson.
Yes.
Trustee Orsick.
Yes.
Trustee Handler.
Yes.
Trustee Myers.
Yes.
Trustee Apatoff.
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 8, ordinances and resolutions. 8A, ordinance number M01-2026, approving a minor change and amending a planned development at 688, 694 Green Bay Road, the Walden. This was intended for introduction and possible adoption. However, the applicant has notified the council that he is unable to attend tonight's meeting. Without objection, this item is deferred until the February 3rd council meeting. There were a few public comments that came in on this, and I assume that staff will alert those members of the public of this new date. So,
Yes.
okay, so we'll be addressing that on February 3rd. We'll move on to item 9, old business. It's not that old, but Hubbard Woods parking deck repairs, and we're looking for policy direction from the council tonight. Tonight, the council will provide policy direction regarding the Hubbard Woods parking deck project. Village staff, Tom Powers, will present proposed repairs and concepts for aesthetic improvements of the parking structure. And Tom, welcome. We're interested in your review of this item.
Thank you, President Dearborn and Village Council, for having me here today to talk about the Hubbard Woods Garage. I'm going to go through recent history with the garage, some of the critical issues we found with some of the recent inspections, what we're recommending in terms of options and things of that nature. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're considering for the aesthetics, and then we'll obviously have the discussion and policy direction. The garage was built in 1990. The last major renovation that I could find records for was in 2014. They did a variety of concrete repairs and waterproofing for $215,000. Then in 2015, there was an IEMA grant to update the lighting system within the garage to high-efficiency LED. More recently, there was the, as you're all aware, the June 2024, we had the Hubbard Woods Streetscape Community Input Meeting, where we heard comments about improving the aesthetics of the garage. We have Jody from Tesca here, who will kind of give us the quick recap on what was discussed there with regards to the garage. In parallel to that, we had, as staff, noticed that the garage was showing signs of deterioration, so we had a structural engineer out to inspect it for a pre-design report. That was Walker Consultants. They did find some items that were of an urgent nature that had to get repaired, so we fast-tracked those as much as we could and got those repairs done this spring. And then there was additional repairs that weren't quite as urgent, would take more time to put together. So we did an RFP to hire an engineer to put together a larger package to repair the garage. We hired American Structure Point to prepare those plans. We have Bob Tober here from American Structure Point, who's kind enough to join us in case there's any questions, detailed questions about the structure condition. They prepared plans which were substantially complete this summer. Then we had our budget meetings. Council indicated they would like to talk more about the garage, so we're coming back with some additional information so you understand the condition and what we're recommending, and we can get policy direction, hopefully. As we talk about the garage, I think it's important just to understand the structure itself, which Bob has kind of given me a tutorial on. The structure is, particularly the roof, is constructed of what are called pre-topped double T's. I've outlined one of those with a red square there. The stem hangs down below, so that picture looking north, you can see the stems hanging down. They run east-west along the garage. They are tied into one another with shear connections that are welded together. So these are precast beams that are finished at the plant. So the garage gets constructed very efficiently, very quickly. It has the surface topping on, and then the field, they tie them together during construction and then seal the joints between the T-beams. They seal them at the ends. You have about 10 to 12 weld connections for each beam along the full length, but when you add up all those T-beams, there's about 600 welded connections, and those are kind of like the skeleton, if you will, and the tendons holding the garage together, giving its strength as a composite structure. So some of the things that came out of the structural inspection is along the center of the garage where all the T-beams tie together, there's an inverted T-beam underneath. There was a waterproof membrane to protect kind of that critical, if you will, backbone of the garage. And that membrane has become fully deteriorated. There's water leaking through. The concrete is deteriorating at the bearing there in the picture. And then the shear connections, we'll talk about a little bit, but those T to T joint sealants are leaking, and when that does, the shear connections start to corrode. When concrete, when steel within concrete corrodes, it expands, the concrete pops off, deteriorates, that sort of thing. We're seeing corrosion anywhere there's a major leak, and this is the urgent repair we did in the lower right. That beam was deemed so deteriorated that we had to make an urgent repair to ensure it was structurally sound, so we had temporarily braced it for a while. came up with sketches and performed the urgent repair with the contractor. This is a view of the T-to-T joint. You can see how there's, I believe it's an epoxy sealant in there, but while it looks okay from this view, it's actually not adhered to the joint in various locations. And of those 54 joints in the, if you want to call it the roof of the garage, 51 of them are leaking. Those leaks directly affect the 600 welded connections below. Besides the water intrusion and the concrete repairs, there's a variety of other repairs that we would make while we were there. I'm not going to go through them in detail, this is just kind of like the summarized list for you. So as a result of that inspection, a major repair was scoped out. Of that, the critical items are $635,500, and then we have the aesthetics, which are about $164,500. So one of the policy things we're asking for is whether we're going to do both, one or the other. I'll go into a little bit more detail about what the aesthetics are, but just kind of listed them there for now. Just quickly want to touch on the coating. So we did look at a life cycle analysis for what made sense to waterproof all these joints. Option A was the cheapest. It's basically what we have out there now. It had a less of a lifespan. Bob did his analysis based on 15 years, but realistically it lasted 10 years or less, because in 2024 that was already pretty deteriorated. Option B is just to do the T-to-T joints, the main center span again, and then to put waterproofing over previous shear connections from 2014. And then the third option would be to put the waterproof ceiling over the entire surface of the garage. Well, that would look more uniform. That upfront capital cost is higher, and the overall life cycle cost when you have to replace all that sealant is also going to be higher. So staff made a decision to go with option B, which is just the joints and the previous shear connections. I know there was some talk about, well, what if we did redevelop? Maybe we don't want to put money into the garage. I'm not going to go into great detail about what can happen. If we want to discuss more later, I'm happy to return to this. But what with the water going through the joints, what we'll eventually see are closures of selected areas, similar to the urgent repair where we had to close some parking. The concrete will continue to deteriorate and it's been falling off. We've gone through and knocked off the loose pieces, but we don't know when it pops again. So sometimes it falls off. And then the picture on the lower right is Bob shared with me another garage of the same design where the joint had not been sealed. They had done nothing with the garage. And eventually the T-beam cracked and they had to close the entire roof. So these are the risks we take if we defer some of these repairs. Just run through the aesthetics quickly. So we put up one of the things I think Jody will touch on more is we want people to use the garage more. They have a hard time knowing it's there and finding it. So in the interim, we put up what we call a regulatory sign that just says public parking on the garage, but there was a desire to make that a little bit nicer, putting in the pendant lights with the floodlights onto a sign that meets the Village of Winnetka design standard for the streetscape. That would replace the regulatory sign, and it's matching kind of the aesthetic of the Serena and Lily with the pendant lights there. So that's the concept to improve the aesthetic of the entry there for the signage. In addition, with the lighting, we are proposing linear lights at the entrance points to create kind of a light wash that really brightens up the opening, the entry points. And then the LEDs that are in there are recessed up into the web. So in the daytime in particular, the spread of the light is restricted by the webs of the beam because they're kind of up in that pocket. So if we drop those down, it'll brighten up the inside of the garage when those come on. So That's actually how they used to be. This is an old picture that shows the light hanging down below, so we want to recreate that. And then once you've taken a light fixture off, added wiring and conduit, you might as well just replace the fixture. They're 10 years old. A large percentage of the cost is in the labor. We don't want to throw good money after bad. If we're going to replace the lighting, we might as well just replace the lighting. With that, I'm going to turn over to Jody, and she'll kind of refresh us on the streetscape discussion and some of the other things we're looking at with regard to the garage.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jody Mariano with Tesca Associates. Thanks for having me tonight. Just as you heard, Tesca worked with the village and the community on a community outreach and a concept design program for the Hubbard Woods streetscape a couple years ago. Some of the things that we heard with regard to the garage, which I don't think is surprising, is that people don't necessarily know it's there. We heard that a lot of people didn't know it was public. Folks that did know about it felt that it was kind of too dark and too far away, and they felt uneasy about getting into there. And so the next few slides talk about some of the things that can be done, some things that we talked about during the streetscape assignment. Also, while we were working on the streetscape assignment, we didn't forge too far into the structure and the facade of the garage itself because we knew that it was being evaluated for structural repairs. Anyways, regarding signage, just as Tom mentioned, we would want to have signage that's not only mounted to the garage itself, but also projected onto the corridor. Most people are coming from Green Bay Road, can't really see the front of the garage, and so we'd want to make sure signage is oriented to people that are on Green Bay Road in both directions to let them know. Similar to what we see in the Elm Street district here on the right. Also some examples from other garages that have sort of that multi-directional viewing signage. So we'd have this example on the left, signs that would project out to the south, but also signs that project to the west so that people can see it from Green Bay Road. Also regarding lighting, the gooseneck lighting is certainly something that can be considered. These are examples of internally lit sign cabinets. We really want to make sure we have high contrast so you can see it really well in the daytime and in the evening. And then once we're in the garage, it's, once we get people into the garage, we want to make sure we get them safely and happily back out into the corridor. So these are some examples on the bottom at the right that really liven up the space with just some fresh coats of paint to help promote Hubbard Woods. As you know, it's a really special corridor with a lot of great things to offer. We hadn't talked about murals before, but since I knew that murals were something that had been discussed, we just wanted to share just some starter ideas. The image on the left is a mural example that's not just paint, but they're projected plexiglass pieces that hang off of a wall, and as the sun moves throughout the sky, it casts different colored shadows. So I think, it could be an opportunity for something that changes over the course of the day. That image in the middle is actually a clock. And so as the sun casts its shadow, you can tell what time it is. It's Europe, so it's military time. But anyways, when the circle number lines up with the pink circle, you know that that's what time it is. So just another opportunity for people to come into the corridor and see something changing and different every day. These images on the right, we couldn't help ourselves. I think for those of you that know the history of Hubbard Woods and Gilbert Hubbard, who was had the first ship chandlery business in Chicago, there's this really interesting story about textiles and craft and design and making things, which I think resonates with what's happening in the design district today. So these are some murals that are kind of spread throughout some communities in Europe that tell that story through lace designs, just kind of covers the wall. So anyways, we're not pretending to be artists, but couldn't help ourselves to share some interesting examples. Back to streetscape. So when we conducted the Hubbard Woods streetscape outreach, we asked the community to weigh in on what types of furnishings and features they would like to see carried over from the Elm Street district into Hubbard Woods. And the things that were selected are photographed here. It includes the lighting, the bollards, planter pots, seat walls, benches, and chairs. So these are the types of things that we could potentially think about including in this mini plaza space. That space on the left that's overgrown with yew shrubs right now is about 10 feet by maybe 8 feet. So we've got space to do something very modest, but could work really well with what's happening around it. We're across the street from the park. Minos is right next door. So there's some great opportunities there. We could also think about adding other things to it. These are examples from other communities, but we are facing south, and so we could think about canopy shelter. We could think about something like pergola and bench swings, something that feels more comfortable when you're up against the sun. Also, some examples here from other plazas that have movable tables and chairs and plantings and pots. I mean, I think we don't have a lot of space to work with, but we can kind of be very selective and make it a comfortable place to sit and gather. So happy to answer any questions, but I think with that, I'll turn it back to Tom.
Yeah, that basically covers it. Just to kind of recap, staff is recommending that we at least do the critical repairs. The structure, despite some of the concrete issues, is in good condition. And if we do the waterproofing, it will stay that way. But if we don't, there's concerns about the long-term viability of the structure.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jody. Why don't we bring it up to council just for some direct questions to Tom and/or Jody. Start at this end. Kim, any questions on this before we go to public comment?
Sure, I have some questions, but I have some reactions. So I do have one question. If we go back to just the very first, the very first, so when you talk, right there for signage. When you're saying like, I'm sorry, go to the next one, please. Oh, no, that one right there. How would this, like the Village of Winnetka sign, would direct people to the parking? I'm confused about that.
Do you want me to address that? Sure. So I think when we think about signage, we think about it as if it's a signage system. So it's about capturing people who are coming before they get to the garage. We want to really make them know from Green Bay Road that there's a way in. So these examples that you see on the right, the one all the way on the right is the Winnetka, it's kind of the standard identity sign. So that's already in place. But then the other two signs, the one above the stop sign, that's a parking directional sign. So that would be at intersections to say public parking is in this direction. And so there would be a few of those in the district. And then the one on the left is our wayfinding sign, and that tells, also that there's public parking.
Okay, so I get that. So this Village of Winnetka one, there's already one there.
Oh, yeah, that's by the bank.
Okay, so you're just showing that to demonstrate how these other options would fit in.
Yeah, so this is
Okay,
before.
I thought it was
yeah.
like, why putting that in front of a parking garage?
Oh, no, so
Because
this
that's
is,
how
yeah,
people
this
know
is
it's parking.
before we get to the
Okay, thank
garage.
you.
And then once we get to the garage, these are some examples of other ways to have that. But I think for me, it's about making sure we pull people off first, off the road.
Okay, that was my only question, but I do have
Yeah.
some reactions that we can talk about when we're
Okay.
ready to discuss.
Kirk? Bridget? No? Tina?
I think I just have one quick question about the structural support, because I think I was in the camp originally of, well, should we wait? And then I got thinking about it, and I started reading this stuff and seeing the photos, and I actually walked through. We're confident that the middle staff recommendation is going to be the safest option in terms of, I don't know, it's because I saw this documentary, I guess, about bridge failures with water, concrete, reinforced concrete. It was on PBS, it's a plug, it was really great. But, I know, exciting evening, but I started to get concerned about that, right? And if, the middle option that staff is recommending, it looks like a patch, and I just want to make sure that, we all want to be able to talk about the aesthetics, but I want to make sure that we don't have a pancaking situation.
Right. Bob, you want to speak to the condition of the structure a little bit and
I can, yeah.
the difference between B and C?
Good evening. My name is Bob Tober. I'm with American Structure Point, and I've been repairing garages for many, many years. So I can tell you that in no way is the Hubbard Woods garage the best structure that I've seen, but it's far from the worst. So it's definitely, it's repairable. We feel like we can cost effectively extend the service life, and unless there's compelling need to replace or to put something else, we put this program together thinking that you'll want to, the garage can serve the needs of the village for a number of years. I do want to make a clarification. In the life cycle analysis that's currently up on the screen, you see 3 options, A, B, and C. What I want you to understand is that the structural repairs, all right, the concrete repairs, are really virtually the same in all options, A, B, and C. We're addressing the load-carrying capacity of the structure. Essentially, this option A, B, and C, it has to deal with surface protection options. What we're putting on the concrete once we do the actual structural repairs to extend the service life and keep out the components which are going to lessen it, which is primarily moisture and de-icing salts. And even if the village doesn't directly apply, I believe you do directly apply de-icing salts, but even if you don't, the cars will drag them in off the street. So it's pretty much unavoidable. But option A is essentially doing all the concrete repairs and just putting sealant back over the T-to-T joints. Option B, and keep in mind, in this precast, and the majority of these options, they almost all have to do with the upper level. The concrete lower level or slab on grade, even if it deteriorates, it's not going anywhere, all right? If there's a local pothole and that develops, Tom and his staff can go out and do a temporary repair, but it's not going anywhere. It's the upper level that we're concerned about because that's what's structurally supported. And so in option A, we're really only doing nothing more than the condition that it's in now as far as durability and extending the surface life with sealants and waterproofing. In option B, what we're doing is 90% of the issues with the upper level are in 10% of the area, which is either that center spine that Tom described earlier, or at the various T-to-T joints that run east-west and are spaced on 10-foot centers. The 90% in between those T-to-T joints and excluding the center spine is in pretty good shape. And so really in option B, we're putting the bang for the buck at the locations that really need it the most. Option C, what we're doing is we're putting a traffic coating over the entire surface. It will be a more uniform look, but the only drawback to that, and it is providing the utmost protection that we can provide to the top surface. However, when you traffic coat the entire upper level and you have to snowplow it in the wintertime, what you're doing is now, if you damage that traffic coating, it's not covered under the manufacturer or contractor's warranties, and so it's hard to clear snow without damaging the traffic coating. And so we think that we're putting the money where it really needs to be spent and applied in the option B approach.
Okay.
I just had one follow-up question to that. Very helpful, because I guess in my mind, I wanted to make sure it is repairable. With these repairs, and if we get another 20 to 25 years, assuming that we regularly maintain it and make sure that the coating is, intact, at what point at the 20-25 year level is that when we're talking about potentially replacing the structure? What have you seen? And I just want to have a look forward on what the typical useful life is of a structure like this. I'm surprised it was built in 1990. It looks like it's from the 60s to me. So,
well, these structures normally have service lives in the 40 to 50-year range. So if we do the math real quick, at 20 years down the road, we're at 50-plus years. Oftentimes, the structures become functionally obsolete, and that may be because the vehicles change substantially. We're looking at transitioning from gas-powered to electrically powered vehicles. That's requiring us to add charging stations in structures that we didn't have before. There's some concerns that you may or may not have heard out in the market about do electrical vehicles really weigh more than gas-powered vehicles, and is that a structural concern? I'll tell you it's not. I think in Europe, where the vehicles tend to be much, much smaller, that may have a legitimate, may be a legitimate concern, but speaking about U.S. garages, I don't think that's a concern. But sometimes that's what happens. For whatever reason, either the usage or the user changes, then the structures, once they become functionally obsolete, even if they're in decent shape, oftentimes there's a better, or the village determines that there's a better and higher end use for the land, right?
That's helpful, thank you.
Okay.
Trustee Myers.
Yeah, I've got one additional question in terms of the aesthetics. So the $164,000, so what you shared is ideas, right? So I guess, and maybe this is part of the whole Hubbard Woods streetscape, but is the idea that there will be a separate process to determine which of those ideas we want to apply? I'm guessing that not all of them fall within the $164,000 budget. You know, what are we approving the $164,000 now, and are we going to fit ideas into that? I guess what's the process, I guess, from here?
I can maybe start by saying these ideas have not been priced, and we don't necessarily know if they fit the $164,000. These were just ideas just to kind of get some preliminary thoughts out there. So as far as process goes, Tesca scoped to produce a concept that shows, what could fit into that space that we think would be compatible for staff's review and feedback, of course. And so we'd be happy to make revisions. We haven't discussed a larger public process, for instance, regarding the design, but we're open to any comments or suggestions that council has this evening.
So at this point, we could approve the repairs, say, yes, we want to do some aesthetic things, but let's come up with more.
We can come back. And it
Well, sort of
presumably would go-
relatedly, I was thinking, while you called this aesthetics, I feel like the lighting isn't really in the same ballpark as doing murals or signage, that lighting is a safety, and while it's not structural, I put that in a little different bucket.
Yeah, well, I'm
than I think
assuming
some
that
of
the lighting is in the critical and structural repairs, not in the
No, we had it in the aesthetics.
Aesthetics, yeah.
So the current plan is, or that 800,000 includes the lighting. It includes a new marquee sign on the front of the garage. And right now, we just have a placeholder for the plaza area. And the mural that is conceived of for what would be the southwest corner was going to be a separate project with the chamber. The wayfinding signage is not included. That would have to go through an IDOT process for permitting, and, I guess we're going to be redoing Green Bay anyways with the streetscape, so I don't know how far we want to go with that, but.
So I'm sorry, Tom, so what's in the 164 is lighting inside the facility?
Yeah, it's the decorative entry lighting.
Oh, okay.
It's improved lighting on the stairs. It's that dropping down of the fixtures.
Okay.
It's the new marquee sign. And then we just have a placeholder, what would I say, 80,000 for clearing that 8x10 area and doing some sort of small improvement there, just to get opened up, ready for a mural.
And when we say the new marquee sign, Jody, you showed
Two very different
Two very
things.
different, yeah,
Yeah,
so.
so, I think that might be something worth getting clarity on. I mean, if we want, I think that the central sign that says Village of Winnetka, while it's really attractive, it's intentionally not intended to be very visible at night. It's really just your village entry sign at the municipal boundaries, the hinterlands. I think, just personally, I think that the signage that wants to be on the garage wants to be very bright and contrasting, and we want to make sure people, not in a loud, not nice-looking way, but it's got to be tasteful. But also, I'd be a little bit concerned that it might get lost, and I think that we want to make sure that people really can see this sign, both from the south, but also from the west, from Green Bay Road. That's a big miss right now. People don't see it. They don't know it's a garage.
So then, I guess, Tom,
That's
In
where I'm
term-
still confused.
in terms of the repairs, do you need to do the lighting as part of the repair of the concrete and the ceiling? I mean, is there a sequencing here, or can you do all that and then come back and do the lighting without causing problems and breaking seals and stuff like that?
Yeah, what I would expect from a construction schedule is you do all the repairs, and then you do the lighting work. And, you know, you could withhold the lighting, just leave it how it is today, leave the regulatory sign like it is today, or not,
Yeah.
or you could fix it.
Maybe I'll just add, I think the one thing, if we know we want lighting there, I think we want to make sure we don't have exterior conduit. So if we can somehow sleeve into the facade so that we can leave a placeholder so that we just have a nice-looking electrical connection in the future, that would be something else to think about.
Okay. All right. I can save the rest for discussion.
Okay. Trustee Apatow, questions?
Yeah, couple things. One, who built this garage? I'm just trying to understand. I look at what you said, the main central failure of this building was the most, where the membrane was gone, and it was the reason why it failed. Is that normal? I'm just trying to make sure we don't repeat the failures or the problems from the past.
In terms of the viability or long-term viability of the waterproofing,
Well, I guess I'm just saying, how did we built something that had a central nerve, as you talk about the spine,
yeah,
that membrane failed, which is the most vulnerable part and the most important part of the structure, that 51 of 50 joints are leaking. Is that some of that may be age, but some of it sounds like it was designed and how it was built. Am I correct or am I incorrect?
you are correct, and we do have a plan to address that. We will be either clearing this garage in the future with a rubber-tipped plow blade. We also may look into using a broom, which is less impactful to the waterproofing membrane. But we will not be going back up there with a steel blade. Plan that to make that very clear to our crews, and there will be consequences if someone disregards it.
But a plow, I mean, the way it was designed that a plow could actually do that, could actually cause it to fail?
Well, it's the waterproofing membrane that gets scraped off, and then the water starts with the membrane, then the water gets into the structure, and that's when you start to have the problems with the concrete deteriorating.
Okay.
Erosion.
That's the most troubling part of this discussion to me, is that the most important part of the structure, the most critical part for the failure was the part that it got destroyed and was failing. So, yeah, whatever we can do, I don't care what you do, that is, I share Tina's concerns about points of failure, how not to repeat that. Just kind of one key thought. The other is on signage. I don't want a Chicago-type sign. If we want something small and tasteful, that's one thing. We don't think we have enough signs in the village. I think we made that clear. We have a sign for pretty much everything. So whatever we do, we just remember that we're not the city of Chicago or the city of Evanston of how we mark our parking structures. And thirdly, as we look at spaces, hopefully, I think it says there's room for 224 spaces up in that garage.
Correct.
I parked there, it's not great space, and I'm looking for the way Costco spaces versus the way the airport spaces, where you're banging doors. I think in our community, we just have to be mindful. If we have 210 spaces, I don't think it really matters if people feel good that they can park their cars or without getting dinged. So I just want to be thoughtful about how we look at spaces and not trying to cram every single car we can in there. All for now, that's it.
Okay. Why don't we open up at this moment for public comment? Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this issue and make public comment? Please, come on up.
I didn't plan. I came to listen. On the way, I came from the garage.
You don't have
I'm
to-
Kathleen
yeah,
Geary.
there we go.
And I live at 1095 Merle in a mixed use building in Hubbard Woods. It's great that the garage is being attended to and the structural parts are going to be fixed. But I too don't want cars crammed in there. And I want the project to take into consideration the residents that live in the Hubbard Woods, in condominiums, in apartments. We use that garage and we buy the lot sticker. It's $100 for 6 months. You only need the sticker for the lower level from 7 to 9. They changed it. It used to be at the, just this last August, the end of August, they changed the time for having to need the sticker Monday through Friday from 8 to 10:30. They changed it from 7 to 9. So most people shopping, business owners, no, they don't need to buy a sticker. But we come and go during the day, and there are times parking is really tight up in Hubbard Woods. That parking garage can get full too. So us residents coming and going, we could be, if we leave the garage during the day, we could be out of parking and, then we in and out of moving our car because there's only 2-hour slots on the streets or 90 minutes. Over at the train station, there's 4. But I'm wondering whether there could be some allotted spots for residents or for sticker buyers for the lot sticker. It's lot C. And as residents in Hubbard Woods, we can't park up above. I've gone up there and tried to park, but I think the signage makes it so we can't. We can only buy a lot C, and that's for the lower, and the top level is A. So, and as residents, we can't buy A. So I just want that to be, the residents to be considered as far as, don't take all our parking away, because we're going to be driving around to go in and out of where we live.
Thank you for raising that topic, and maybe we can use this as an opportunity to look at the size of the spaces, resident parking, et cetera, since we're going to be likely redoing that structure. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, and we'll bring it back here, and I think that we're kind of talking structural, we're talking aesthetics. The aesthetics, and Manager Kazinas can talk to this, would likely go through the Design Review Board ultimately. Kristen, maybe you want to comment on that.
Yes, so any of the signage decisions specifically or aesthetic improvements to the outside, for example, changing the paint, would need to go through the Design Review Board.
Could that come back to council after DRB?
So it would.
It would come back to council for final approval.
For final
Okay.
approval. So this really was getting council the information requested from the budget review meeting on what the budget plan was allocated between the critical structural repairs and the refinement of the aesthetic plan. But that would need to go through the process from the Design Review Board and then come back to council for final approval.
And what was the capital budget amount for 2026 for this structure?
It is 800,000.
800 was budgeted, okay.
I'm sorry, Bob, can I
Go
just
ahead,
ask
go
a
ahead, Scott,
question?
sure.
So, I'm not clear what's going to be taken to design review. Is it, because it sounds like what Jody was saying, there's a couple options on the sign outside. So, how does that get decided, what sign it's going to be? And if we're clearing that space, the landscaping, does that have to go, I'm
Yeah, I
just
think
wondering,
all
what
that- yes.
specifically are we
I'm not sure the
asking about?
lighting
I
would
don't know
go
what we're
through.
asking,
I
yeah.
mean, the lighting, to me, seems more structural, part of the structural repair, if we
Yeah.
want to do the lighting as proposed.
The interior
Interior
lighting
lighting.
would
Yeah.
not, from my understanding, need to go to design review board, but the exterior improvements would. So this is a conceptual phase where we're at now. The plan would need to be finalized so that there would be a specific plan that would come to the design review board. And so the policy direction we're looking for, from what we heard at the budget meeting, was, is council supportive of moving forward with finalizing and refining the aesthetic improvements to bring forward for approval, or should we just focus on the structural repair?
And the aesthetic portion of this would be prepared by staff, and TESCA would be involved? And it would go straight to design review board, or would that come back to council before going to design review board?
The normal process would be it would go to design review board first and then come to council. And TESCA, we have been in conversations about refining the plan. Jody, if you want to speak to what your next steps would be if council gives policy direction to proceed.
Sure, yeah, the next steps for us is to develop a model and a set of concept plan drawings that we would then share for feedback and make refinements. We are scoped, I believe, to take this through construction documentation and construction oversight of just the landscape and the plaza components. Based on conversations that we had had earlier with staff, we wanted to just share information about signage and murals, but that's not part of TESCA's current scope, if that makes sense.
Okay?
Okay, so some of those concepts for the Hubbard Woods Garage aesthetics where it shows the lit vertical light, whatever, those concepts would not be addressed in this aesthetic budget that we would be looking at tonight, the 164,000.
I understand. It's a bit confusing.
Yeah,
So
because it's like a mixture here.
to give you the whole history, at one point, we were going to paint the exterior of the garage. And we did some mock-ups and tried some different things, and it just didn't really seem to make sense. So we took that money that we were planning to paint the garage, and we said, what else can we do? And that's where this plaza idea came up from. But we had already planned to replace the signage on the front before TESCA was involved with those pendant lights, or I know they're not called pendant lights, they're called something else, but the pendant lights, and it's not a Village of Winnetka sign, it would be a sign that says, public parking, maybe it has a logo, maybe it says Village of Winnetka, and the shape of that sign was really trying to show what that sign is, just the border, and it's gonna match the aesthetic of some of the other signs in the streetscape.
So Tom, again, the interior lighting you have in the budget for the aesthetics,
Correct.
but really, I think, at least what I'm hearing
What
here.
I'm sort of wrestling with is when I look at those 6 items of the 164,000, I mean, directionally, I'm great. Decorative entry lighting, as long as it's tasteful, whatever. Improved stair lighting is a must-do.
Right.
Improved interior lighting, I think, is a must-do. But new marquee sign, to me, then we started getting into some of these other concepts, and I'm
Right.
like, I'm not quite sure what I'd be saying okay to start going down the path of looking at those kind of options when I don't like those options.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess I would be interested to hear, like, do some of the signs on this slide interest you versus just what I described, the Serena and Lily type lights on a fairly simple sign. The latter is what we've budgeted.
Okay,
At
so
this
that's,
point,
that's the new marquee sign is
yes,
effectively what's in that
yes.
one. Okay, then I'm good with that.
if we want something like
And I
this,
do
we'd
like the
have
little
to-
mini plaza idea, sort of like the corner by Pete's where people gather all year round and sit there. That would be a great corner for that kind of concept, which is, I think, what
Yeah,
But it
you're
sounds like
looking at.
what's budgeted is just tearing out that that ugly bush and, you know, paving it and enhancing it is not in this.
Mini
budget.
plaza. Oh, okay, so maybe, can you clarify that? So there's no improvement, it's just
we
clearing
haven't
it?
had we didn't make the concept yet.
No,
Okay.
but since we're talking about it, if I may, okay, so these are some examples of the Elm Street district that have places to sit and gather using the standard furnishings. Maybe one thing we can talk about is, would we like to see something like these that match the rest of the standard streetscapes, which are also anticipated to be incorporated in Hubbard Woods in the future? Or might we want to consider something additional to help liven up the space?
So to Scott's point, though, the improvement part is not in the 164. The 164 is just clearing away.
Oh, that's right. It's
and
in
sort of
the-
prepping the site to decide what to do with it. Okay.
It's in the 80s, so I guess we don't need to decide that tonight.
So again, Tom, if stairway lighting, interior lighting, if there's kind of a consensus that that's sort of part of the infrastructure here, can we kind of allocate that cost and to what that would be and then come back with a plan for aesthetics, true aesthetics? I mean, I think we're all thinking aesthetics is the exterior lighting, it's the signage, it's the plaza. And to approve the 164 now, it sounds like, you know, it's kind of mixing and matching some different components from work that needs to be done versus maybe the work we would want to do potentially. So can we come back with that?
And I think just to clarify, the policy direction tonight that staff needs to hear is if council is at a point of readiness to authorize moving forward with the structural components, and then with the aesthetics, coming back with what the plan would be. Council, we're not asking for approval of the expense at all tonight. It's just the policy direction to move forward with the specifics on the structural repair and then move to the next phase of what is the plan and the recommendation for the aesthetic piece. So
Okay.
what we heard in the budget meeting is potentially council wouldn't be interested in aesthetics, period, and may be interested in just moving forward with only the structural repairs. So what we're asking for tonight is, can we take the next step to move forward with refining the concept to come up with an aesthetic plan?
I can jump in for a minute. I think we probably all agree we should move forward with the structural, and I think we probably all agree that some number is appropriate for aesthetics if we're already in there and working on it. I think the real aesthetics number is probably more like 80,000 because the lighting shouldn't be in that column. And I like the Serena and Lily simple sign. That's my policy direction. And, you know, I would say it sounds like we're really talking about signage and the 8x10 area, and we can get that cleared, and then we can see what we can do with it. Or, I mean, I don't mean clear it now.
Right.
But it seems like those two things are really what we're talking about with the $80,000, and I'm in favor of doing all of that at once.
Okay. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I agree, I think we all agree on the direction of repairs and the lighting. The one thing that I would suggest we think about is, given how you get to that parking lot, putting a nice sign on the parking lot itself doesn't do anything. Because like when you see that, you're past it. So it's what do we do at Merrill, what do we do on Scott to kind of direct people? The sign on the garage itself could be perhaps relatively small, you know, but this is the stuff that I think, you know, you'll think about with the staff. You know, we can take it to the next level, but I agree in terms of the direction, yes.
I agree with both of you guys. I just would say that I think the signage seems to be giving people a little bit concern, and so I think going through the, you know, design review process is key. I think they get our aesthetic. They're not going to put a, what is it, a pendant sign or whatever that is, you know, that's backlit, looks like from a building in Seattle. You know, that's not going to happen there. But I do think even the Serena and Lily lighting will be visible from Green Bay. You will see that there's something there that will catch your eye in a tasteful way. So I'm in support.
Okay. Kirk?
Don't want to be negative, but I caution us to be careful about a slippery slope with some of these aesthetic improvements. I'm not personally in favor of trying to create some sort of little mini plaza. I think relative to all the additional effort that Tesca's doing for the entire streetscape improvements, we could make a big mountain out of this molehill, and it might not fit within the grander scheme. I would recommend that we consider some sort of mini plaza, aside from maybe some newer, fresher, maintenance-free landscaping that fits within the village aesthetic, to not consider this point and to roll that into the streetscape improvements. I also have questions about how that would actually be used. I mean, who's going to necessarily want to go sit next to a parking garage mid-block when it's not at a key corner destination? I mean, if you look at the bocce ball across the street, it hardly gets used. Yeah.
I disagree with that. That bocce ball is always in use.
Good to know.
I contend.
Okay, good to know. But I would say, I
there
stand by my point, though. I don't
Yeah.
think a mini plaza is worth the investment or consideration right now. If there's any consideration of it, it should be rolled in within the streetscape improvements. Second thing is, same thing goes for the mural. I think we're trying to put lipstick on a really nice pig in some respects. And it's, you know, let's not go overboard, especially when we all aren't sure what the true long-term use of this structure will be, especially when we start doing art. There might turn into an emotional attachment to that, or it's like, are we throwing good money at bad? I am in favor of the lighting, the functional improvements, the wayfinding, the signage on the building to dress that up, make it look more timeless, fit within the village. I don't think a lot of folks are too pleased with it. Works, but you know, whatever you called it, Tom, the functional signage on the
Regulatory
building,
sign.
right? It does the job, but it's not really in keeping with the Winnetka aesthetic.
So I guess what I'm hearing here is that the numbers are really not what we're approving here, but we're working within that construct of the budgeted numbers. So we're going to shift a little bit from aesthetics over to the structure, including the lighting, and that we'll revisit the aesthetic portion. I mean, is that kind of what, we're not dismissing the idea of doing aesthetic improvement there, but we're going to revisit that.
Can I offer a suggestion?
Sure.
One of my goals, or I guess something I would like you to consider is, we want to get this, we also want to get the improvements on the street, because winter is when you get the best pricing. Contractors are sitting at home, they have their pencils sharp. If we can get a bid out in the winter, we'll get better pricing. So my suggestion is we finalize the documents for the critical repairs, the lighting. Maybe we put in an allowance for the sign on the front as that moves through the design review board. Maybe we include a design that we think may work or is close, and hopefully it doesn't get, if it changes, it changes, it's okay. But that would allow us to move forward with the core project and get good pricing. And then the aesthetics, once that takes shape, we could either look at a change order or bidding that separately, because it's exterior to the garage. It has no, at this point, it has no structural, you know, it doesn't have to be the same contractor. You may not even want the general contractor who's doing the repairs to do the aesthetics. Sometimes you want companies that are, if it has some landscape elements, you want a firm that has an eye for that stuff and has skills in that area. So I guess that would be my suggestion is if you're open to it, let's move forward with the core critical stuff, add the electrical, an allowance for the main sign, and then, as you mentioned, the aesthetics on a separate track, and once that's solidified, we address it at that point.
Well, personally, I think that makes sense. And Tom, timing on that, you go out for the bids for contractors. What would you anticipate the time frame for this project to be?
So, yeah, I think we probably finalize the documents in the next month or so and go out to bid for probably a spring start of work. The other benefit there is we could get this all done before the holiday season. We don't want to be creeping into the holiday season, affecting the businesses during that important shopping period. Bob, you've done more garages than I have. Any idea on like a rough, Bob's not going to build it, so don't hold it to him too much. But like, what do you think in terms of a construction duration for this project?
Well, obviously, a lot of that depends on how many spaces that is the contractor going to be given at a time. We know we're not going to give them 5, and we're not going to give them the entire garage. So there's got to be some happy medium in between that allows him to be productive. That's going to give you the best price in the bidding for the work to be done. But also, we understand that you need to maintain normal operations, even though at a reduced capacity. My guess is it's going to be about a 4 to 5 month duration.
And that is closing portions of the garage, kind of sequencing this whole thing. At some point, 50% might be closed, or what would be the typical degree of disruption?
I think in what village engineer Bernal told me was they did close the entire roof in 2014.
Okay.
So I think that would be ideal, but
Figure that out.
I think you could get away with a quarter of, half of the roof at a time, so a
Yeah.
quarter of the structure. But
Probably about a quarter, because it doesn't really do us, if we take the entire roof, while we're doing the structural work, we have to take the area below for safety reasons, and then now we're taking the entire garage. So a contractor would probably be pretty content if we were to say that you could have somewhere between maybe a third to a half of the roof level. But that also means for at least a portion of that time, he needs to take a corresponding area below. So maybe it's 25% and 25%, something like that.
Something like that, okay, in 4 to 5 months, okay? It's going to be disruptive. I mean, it just will be. I mean, it's a very important structure up there. There's no doubt about that. There have been conversations at village-owned property about possibly redeveloping that area at some point, but if we want that structure to be available for the next several years, this is probably what it takes. So are we?
Okay, yeah, I'm good with what Tom proposed. I guess what I'm just a little still nagging at me is the sort of the footnote of the aesthetics and what the next steps is, because I keep hearing, oh, it'll work its way up now through the design review board and then come to us. I guess what I don't want to happen is there's some concepts here that I'm not very supportive of.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the mural concept. I'm not a fan of the outdoor room. I think that's overkill. What I don't want is this to go to the design review board, go, well, the council saw this presentation, and everybody starts putting money and time against developing some of these concepts, and then they come up to us and we're not supportive of them.
I think the aesthetics would need to come back to us first, because
Okay,
part of this is budgeting.
yeah, okay.
We have an $800,000 budget for this project. You're going to put it out for bid. If everything that we're talking about comes back at $770,000, we have an issue on the aesthetics.
Right.
And so I kind of think, Kristen, that the aesthetic piece would have to come back
To us first. Okay.
in the midst
I
of
just
this
don't want wasting time and
process.
money.
Bob,
Okay.
before you start on the, do you have a sec? Can I make a comment? Before they spend money on developing aesthetics, I kind of agree with Kirk and with Kim. This is a garage on the railroad tracks. We want to make it look as attractive as possible, but I'd rather have all those dollars going into safety, going into crosswalks, going into other things in the Hubbardwood streetscape, versus trying to, as Kirk colorfully put lipstick on a nice pig. I just think it's a situation where why spend the dollars if we think this, let's get it safe, let's get it usable, let's get the spacing correct, and get it back into operation as fast as we can without all the other, I don't think we need to go to the other steps.
Well, I still think aesthetics should come back to us. We can decide at that point if it's too much or too little, but I think it should come back to us.
I mean, maybe one thing I can just add for reference is that we know that the plantings that are in front of the garage really do need to be edited and pruned out. Something needs to go back in its place so we, can control the erosion and wind blowing mulch and things around. So we could consider a very simple landscape plan that just shows what it can be planted with so that we keep views to the garage nice and wide and open. And maybe there's a placeholder for a bench, and if we decide we like it, great, and if not, no harm, no foul.
Well, the project, Tom, you're going to put this out for bid. The project would have to come back for approval
Correct.
to council. So this is, again, policy direction. Maybe we just, unless other people have other comments on this, maybe we can give the green light to go out and bid the critical infrastructure with the understanding that's going to come back for approval here, once the bids come back and so on, the whole project is priced out. And then the aesthetics will also come back at some point for a little bit or a lot of it. I mean, and we'll just make that decision as we go.
Yeah. And I think another strategy could be, as staff works with TESCA on what that corner is, we can make reports in our weekly report so people can see, and, you all can decide from there how much.
You can keep us posted that way, but I do think we have to come back public
Okay.
on this, I believe.
Yeah, and this, I think, was helpful, Jody, for you to hear some of the feedback from some of the first looks to help refine and simplify. And I think getting the council direction to move forward on the bidding is helpful, and then that will help drive how much budget capacity we have left.
Okay, so essentially, we had two directions to go, and that was to give policy direction to approve the full boat, aesthetics and infrastructure. The second was structural repairs up to the tune of $635,500. But what we're saying here, I think, is go out and bid the project, which would include the other elements of the structural repair, the lighting primarily. Come back to us with that. We'll see what's left and go from there. Everyone okay with that? Trustee Apatoff, you okay? Okay. We don't need to vote on that, do we?
No. it's just
Okay,
policy.
that's our direction. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Good to see you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Item 10, new business, we have none. Item 11, appointments, none. We do not have a closed session. Item 13, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
And that's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.